This Bonestorm build will have you clearing tier 15 maps the moment you clear the campaign. With just 85 points in the tree, I can survive a tier 15 using gear that only cost me 6 Exalted. Now, after inflation, some of these will be a little bit more expensive. But the reason our gear costs so cheap is we're using a combination of two uniques that eliminate our resistances and then let our armor block elemental damage. This is imperfect, it doesn't work on everything, but I'll explain that later. Now that we don't care about resistances at all, our gear becomes incredibly cheap. Everyone else is looking for like perfect gear with resists on it. We just want armor. We want anything that says armor, armor, armor. And move speed. And block chance. And by stacking armor and using that to solve our resistances, we can quickly get into high tier content. Optional damage items like a good wand, this necklace, and then this is your first Divine Orb purchase, just speed everything up. But the point is, you can make it work. My Bonestorm only costs 95 mana per second, and even less than that, because a third of the time we're in a cast animation while we're regenning. So my Bonestorm is only around 60 mana per second. We stay in overflowed life almost the entire time. And our Bonestorm DPS, don't let this fool you. We can clear pretty quick. This is a tier 15 mod. A tier 15 map that has extra monster life and monsters armored. Two things that should really slow down Bonestorm. And if we go right around here, you can see me just blast through packs. These are white mobs. Let's get something that actually matters. And there are some blues. They just melted. Oh. So you can see, I'm staying in the overheal mechanic. And I'm not even using Leech. In fact, I didn't get Leech on my build until I did the tier 4 Ascendancy. Unless I was fighting certain, like, bosses that are extended fights, like the Trial of the Sekimas or the Trial of Chaos. During the boss fights, Leech is good. Otherwise, through all of mapping, I don't use Leech. Because I just stay at, 5300 HP. So you might be thinking, well, why don't you just wear a regular helm and not have to deal with this downside? This increased health value is insane for making us not die. It is very hard to get life on gear, and if we're getting armor on gear, without this, I only have 1800 HP. If I'm competing for health rolls on gear, I'm spending a ton of money. But by letting this just function as a 50% more base HP, we get real tanky. The opportunity cost of replacing this much HP, this HP is basically worth about 45% all resist in terms of the time it takes us to get one shot to dead. So not only does this helmet get us up from 40% negative resist up to 0, it's also functionally giving us an additional 45% resist on top of that. You can see what my math on all of it here. If you click on this and you want to read way too much stuff, a little bit more about why that is. But basically, this helmet is the equivalent of 80 all resist as far as one shot to dead. And since it sets our resist to 0, monster mods that debuff us with negative elemental resist do nothing because this says 0. We can't go below it. It also lets us use this relatively cheap helmet, relatively cheap amulet that has negative all resists at no penalty. To get these 2 items, these are 1 Exalted each, because nobody's using them. A couple people are using this one. Nobody's using this. Get gloves with straight armor. You can ignore everything. Try to get chaos resist if you can. Get boots with 20 to 25% move speed minimum, and then straight armor. Get a shield with block chance, armor, and more armor. And try to get a little bit of strength somewhere so that you can get these requirements much easier. For your belt, this is where things can get a little bit pricey. You want armor, max life, chaos resist, and if you can, you're going to want some mana to make the build run a little smoother. You're going to want mana on a couple pieces if you can. For our wing, we just want cast speed, chaos resist, and we can't get physical damage, so it doesn't really care, and max life. This is one of the places we can get max life. You can start with like just a +3 to skills wand, and you'll probably comfortably clear tier 10s the moment you hit mapping in terms of your damage. And once your first purchase for like maybe under 5 exalts should be a good wand. Your first damage purchase. Focus on tank first so you don't die. You can use a less DPS wand and you'll be fine. And finally, for your first divine orb, get a snake pit pearl ring. These are amazing, and you're going to use this for basically the rest of your career while you running Bonestorm. This lets Bonestorm projectiles chain and Eye of Winter chain. I have a start mapping option here and an in-game variant. So as you put more points in your tree, you know where to go. Let's look at my current build in-game for a little bit more context. I basically ran down here, got armor, and eventually got a bunch of block to get my block chance to 75%. This lets me deal with sustained damage. The 5400 HP and armor lets me deal with burst damage. This node here is really important. Defend with 200% armor against critical hits. This drastically reduces the damage we take from critical hits. And for jewels, you can either run something tanky, like increased armor, or you can run something like this. Got critical hit chance for our spells, offering duration, and offerings have max life. And then I have a similar one over here. The reason for that is soul offering is a huge damage boost. It's currently about 50% more damage. We just pop it on a warrior. And normally it would last 4 seconds, which makes it, not the most practical skill in the game. We'll have to pop it when we're already in combat, but with it lasting 8 seconds for me, I can pop it, run to another pack, and I still have the boost. So I could get, 4 or 5 Bonestorms off, if I really wanted to. Let's look at my skills and my links. For Bonestorm, this DPS number is really deceptive. Scattershot is a massive DPS increase, even though you'll see your stat sheet go down. This is because Scattershot increases the projectiles fired per stage from 1 to 3. So instead of taking 20 stages to reach a full stack, it takes us 6.5. This is how I get these Bonestorms off so quick. This plus about 150% cast speed. If I were to move Scattershot, you'll see I cast way slower. Additionally, Bonestorm's mana is not calculated per cast because it is a channeled spell. It's calculated per second. So whenever you include something that says less cast speed, you actually save on mana cost. So right now my Bonestorm costs 119 mana per second. Adding this drops it to 95. And that's important. We stay at overflowed life. You see in this video, I have 5300 HP. In order to run around with overflowed life, we need to keep our mana costs on Bonestorms low. Most builds will just stack damage to the moon, and then they end up just killing themselves with Bonestorm just from casting it. They can't stay in the overflow life territory. With our Bonestorm only costing 95 life per second, and a third of the time we're actually just spitting it out, in practice, this is like 60-70 life per second. Very manageable with life remnants. I'm doing this by running Inspiration. I'm running Scattershot, which reduces our cast speed, lowering our mana costs, and I'm running Condensed Casting. This 15% less cast speed is once again reducing our cost. While this also is an 18% damage buff on average if you factor in the cast speed versus the damage increase. So it's a pretty good damage buff with the upside of we spend less mana. And my final, in my 4, is Brutality. Now I didn't run Brutality for a while because I happened to have wands that had, damage conversion. They said, convert some of the damage to, frost and lightning damage. And if I was running Brutality, that wouldn't be happening. I was running Arcane Tempo instead. But Brutality is slightly more damage for mana cost, because Arcane Tempo is 25% more cast speed, meaning you're going to spend 25% more mana. This is only 20% more cost for 35% more damage. Eye of Winter is something that I'm surprised every creator is not using, that every caster. I'm shocked that I haven't seen other YouTubers discover this. Basically, you run Eye of Winter and Unleash. And if you do that, you press Eye of Winter, and it shoots 3 of them. On a single target, if your aim is good, like if that's the target, it now has full stacks of critical weakness. And if if your aim is a little bad, you just send 1 extra out, and now you're at full stacks. Eye of Winter, with the chain effect from Snake Pit, and chain here, means the entire pack of mobs will now be with critical weakness, and critical weakness is incredibly strong. See, Bonestorm has a base crit chance of 15%. And if you look at my crit chance currently, I'm up to 45, which means I have 200% increased crit. That's actually a little low. I'm shooting to get around 60% stat sheet. And that would be 300% crit chance. But gear hasn't worked out for me yet. The reason that number is important is critical weakness says you at full stacks you get 10% to critical hit chance, not more critical hit chance, not increased critical hit chance, to critical hit chance. When something says 2 in this game, it means it applies to the base crit chance, which then gets modified by increased and more modifiers. So if I take this Bonestorm at 15% crit and it puts it to 25% crit. Meaning, if my stat sheet said 60% right here, at 15% base crit, at 25, Bonestorm would have 100% crit chance. Right now, it's only like a 75% crit chance after Eye of Winter. So any small increases in crit chance will be amplified dramatically with Eye of Winter up. For my warrior, it's really simple. I corrupted the gem just to get some extra free quality for extra block chance. I slammed in +1 Dominion skills, Culling Strike, and Martial Tempo. Now, I probably should drop this out for +10 physical skills so that I can get it just to be a little bit more tanky, but this means it eats my Bonestorm debuff stacks a little bit faster. That doesn't really matter. Culling Strike is amazing on warriors because it basically means you have rares will get culled at 10% HP by the warrior, so it's like a 10% damage increase to you from a minion that otherwise does almost 0 damage, and uniques will get culled at 5%. So, very good overall. Warriors also provided a defensive layer by alerting us to enemies that are off screen. They'll aggro them and keep them off us. They will keep some charging enemies, especially in close quarters, from getting to us. And they provide something for Soul Offering to hit. Had I been running Reavers here, I'd only have 2 of them. Warriors are cheap at 20 spirit, and they're more likely to just hold minions off you. Running three warriors, we also just need 2 clerics to keep them alive most of the time. We don't care if they die that much. For our clerics, we just try to keep them alive with Elemental Army, Last Gasp, and Ingenuity. I will note, I was running 20% health, and my warriors were almost never dying. They're starting to die a little bit more without any minion health, but I'm not sure I need to fix that. Detonate Dead. I don't normally run Splinter on it. It was just that last map I was running with the armor. Detonate Dead is amazing. It takes 20% of a minion's health, multiplies it by your spell damage modifier. So if I have like 200 spell damage, that's going to be 60% of the corpse's max life. And then if I crit, it's going to be like another 4x light on it. So that's going to be like 240% of the minion's max life. And then if I have Soul Offering up, it's another 120. So I'm going to be doing like 300% of the minion's life to everything else around it, which means every other minion is dead, and sometimes it will just blow up yellow mobs. You combine that with Spell Echo for a second cast at a larger radius, Magnified Effect for more radius, and Corpse Conservation to not eat corpses. Another great option, if I had a 4th tier right now, would be to put Pin. Pin on Detonate Dead is hilarious because you pop Detonate Dead and everything just stays in the pile of dead corpses. It's great. It does so much damage and so much pin, you can just keep enemies away from you. Profane Ritual allows us to get power charges, which are used by Bonestorm. For those that don't know, you can hold Alt when looking at something and scroll over its text to read more information. In Bonestorm's case, you get to look at the explosion here and see that it does an additional effect when you have power charges. It'll consume not one, but all of them to give it an explosive component on its cast, which allows it to AoE better and hit single target because the wave of splinters can all hit the same target. So we run mobility so that we're casting Profane Ritual as we're moving between packs. So we want it to slow us down less while we're casting it. And we're using Fast Forward so that we get the power chargers just a little bit quicker. Bone Cage is how we deal with mosquitoes. Bonestorm's projectiles have a hard time hitting 3 types of mobs: mosquitoes, beetles, and snakes. Their character models are weird, and the Bonestorm, it's not that the character model is thin. Bonestorm will actually fly over it. It's really weird. So to deal with mosquitoes, we use Bone Cage, plus Astral Projection. And when we see some mosquitoes coming towards us, we can just spam Bone Cage, and it'll get them dead. Nova skills are very good for this. Soul Offering is that big damage buff. If you look at mine right now, 8-second duration, and about 1,000 life. If I cast a Soul Offering in the front line where there's lots of things attacking, it will still die, but with 1,000 life in the back line, random AoEs don't generally kill it. To make Soul Offering give me more spell damage than this 36%, I use Ablation for 30% increased offering effect. I use Persistence. Supported skills have more duration, so 8 seconds. And then just Meat Shield because I want it to live. The Soul Offering itself is a minion, after all. It's worth noting, someone pointed out they thought this offering skills deal 30% more damage. This is not applying to Soul Offering. This is applying to Bone Offering, which does damage. So someone was asking, like, why am I not running it with Dance Macabre? because Dance only increases offering damage by 30%, and it ends up increasing the effect by about 7% total, compared to what it is now. For my final skill, this is kind of a flex spot. I'm not exactly sure what to put here yet. I've tried a bunch of different things, and I'm still not happy with any one of them. I might even take this out and put like Blasphemy and Enfeeble as a curse, just to kind of reduce enemy damage or temporal change. But then I lose these minions, so I don't really know. I've even used the Ice Block to, like, if I'm overwhelmed, use it as a projectile barrier. Unearth can also be helpful for producing minions, but I don't really have enough duration right now to make it work. So, we'll see. There you have it. That's the build. I regularly take questions in the Discord. Path of Exile has a really, really good Discord server. It's discord.gg/Path of Exile. Really easy to remember and share. I'm pulling it up right now. We go here. And you come to the Path of Exile Discord. This is like, they don't call it the official Discord, but as you can see, Grinding Gear Games is actually in this Discord, and they will regularly chat in the PoE2 channel. You come to PoE2 Build Help, and you search for which tips? Dad Gamers. This is a thread I maintain. We have 8,800 comments. And so there's a discussion, people can ask questions, a bunch of people are pinging me. At the top, or in the pinned post, pinned messages, you can also navigate it that way. And there's a way to do it on mobile. It's annoying though. You can see a link to my guide, a link to my Chaos Starter Guide, and links to other creators. Additionally, since I don't really pay favorites, even when that favorite is me, you can check the Church of Sorceress and Witches. This is a really good chat, maintained by Zelastia. Zelastia was super helpful early on in a lot of my theory crafting. They were living in the PoE2 build planning channel, and they helped answer a lot of my dumb questions and were really nice about it. So, check the Witch Tips for Dad Gamer, PoE2 build planning, and the Church of Sorceresses to find really good information. I think the builds currently shown here are going to be a little bit, are frequently more sweaty, and the Witch Tips for Dad Gamers is for builds like me, players like me, who want a little bit more chillaxive experience. They want to be able to face tank the world, and they want to, do it on a budget. Eventually, I'm going to be switching to a build that costs several Divine Orbs, and it's going to look very different than this. But for now, this should get you up and running and ready to game. So if you've liked what you've seen, like, subscribe, and I'll keep making content. My next switch after this build, the next thing I'm going to be testing, is I might be making another witch and just showing how to do my Chaos Starter build. This build is not complete. It's going to be up soon. And what I'm going to test on my high-level character will be my final form build, which goes up into Energy Shield and tries being the keyword, to run a wand and a scepter and not die. Honestly, I don't think that's possible. But if it is, we can get a bunch of minion skills. I can put a jewel here that buffs everything in this radius, and I can run high crit reavers to consume my Bonestorm damage. It's going to be really weird. Oh, and we can get like level 35 Unearth. And Unearth scales silly when you increase its level. But it might just cost like 1,000 health and just kill me whenever I cast it. So like, I don't know. But yeah, level 35 Unearth would be insane. Alright. See ya.